Welcome back to Math with Miss Schwartz. Today we're going to continue on with our product rules and we're going to focus in on power of products. We did touch on this a little bit previously, but we're going to continue on. We'll review what we've touched on last week just in case some of you have forgotten. So let's jump right into it. Just wanted to show you again what we've gone over previously. So product of powers. Notice now we're looking at powers of products and how that kind of flip-flops. But when we multiply powers with the same base, we add their exponents. So we did that first. And while that's pretty easy by itself, as we start to add in, and as you've probably already seen, as we start to add in some more of these properties, things can get a little trickier. And then we talked about power of a power, where if you raise something to a power, we're going to multiply our exponents. So just a couple examples of those just to review. So a to the third raised to the second power, okay, we would multiply our exponent, so we would get a to the sixth. And then we'd have v to the fifth raised to the sixth power, which would give us v to the 30th. And then we touched on, just briefly, okay, and this goes into what we're looking at today, our few examples today. This video actually won't be very long, but we have a product inside our parentheses here. We're actually multiplying a squared times b squared, but that's being raised to a power. So essentially we could break this apart and say we have a to the second raised to the third power, and we have b to the second also raised to the third power. Okay, well, based on what power of a power says, this would be a to the sixth, b to the sixth. So what we say is we can basically distribute that into each piece and multiply just like we would with the power of a power, and then we have our simplification. So let's move it down so we can look at power of a product more specifically. So we've broken it apart multiple times with these breakdowns to make sure that we understand how this looks. So it's having you write the expression as a product of two powers and then write a general rule for finding it. So we'll kind of talk about what it is. And we've already talked about this a little bit, so it won't be very difficult. But as you can see, if we break this apart, we have a product in here and it's raised to a power. Well, if we break that apart, we would actually have 2 times 3, and then we'd have that 3 times. So if we pulled it apart into two powers, we would have how many 2's, because we could list out all the 2's in a row, you can multiply in any order, and how many 3's? We'd have 2 to the third power and 3 to the third power. So if we had just taken it and distributed it like we've talked about, we would have what we needed. So for B, another way to think about it would be 2 to the fifth times 2 to the fifth, or sorry, 2 times 5 times 2 times 5, twice, right, to the second power. So it actually would end up being 2 to the second times 5 to the second. Okay, same thing here. 5 times 4 times 5 times 4 times 5 times 4. So if we pull out our 5's, we'd have 3 5's and 3 4's. So eventually, we hopefully wouldn't need to do that. We would just be able to understand, okay, if this is going to work, we're going to pull it into each of the pieces, or each of the factors, that was the word I was looking for, within our multiplication problem. 3 to the second, x to the second, instead of having to write it all out. Okay, so back to this slide. To find a power of a product, find the power of each factor and multiply. And one way we've definitely talked about it is distributing the power to each factor inside. So we have some examples that we're going to look at. If you haven't put this definition on your gold sheet or this one, you might want to go back and do that really quickly so that you have them written on that gold packet. All right, so A is our first example, 2x raised to the third power. So we're going to bring it into both pieces based on our rule. So we'd have 2 to the third, x to the third. Well, we can simplify this even further. That would be 8x to the third. So always, if you're working with those coefficients, simplify them, evaluate them so that you have an answer there. So 8x to the third is as simplified as it'll get. Okay, now we have three pieces or three factors here, so we're going to distribute to all of those. So we have 3 squared, x squared, y squared, and we can figure out 3 squared is 9. There we go. Okay, a couple more here. I'm going to have you try a few on your own. We have 4 to the 4th raised to the 3rd, so this is a power of a power, so we would have 4 to the 12th, and then if you would like to, you could simplify that. It gets a little bit tougher when they're bigger. Okay, y to the 2nd raised to the 4th would be y to the 8th. We're multiplying those exponents. Negative 4 to the 3rd raised to the 2nd would be negative 4 to the 6th. Does make a difference that those parentheses are there. Okay, so these next ones deal specifically with what we've been talking about. I'm going to do 7. You're going to try 8 and 9 on your own. So I'm going to distribute 5 to the 4th, y to the 4th. So I could figure out 5 to the 4th. That would be 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. So 125 times 5 essentially. Give me 625 y to the 4th. So I want you to go ahead and do 8 and 9. And then once you're done with that, I will give you your homework. All right. Have a wonderful day.